Afternoon, everyone. Paul Kelly here, just with Lee Campbell, who are running our second CashCalc session here. So this is for existing users and new users who want to assess CashCalc. We'll try and keep it to 30, 40 minutes on a lunchtime on a Friday. And what we're going to do with CashCalc is just explain the genesis of what it is, how it's been used, where it came from, and then get into a couple of key scenarios. So what Lee is going to run through for you in due course is going to show you how to build a fact find, engage with a client, build typical scenarios around pension drawdown, pension funding, income protection, loss of income, and a few other little scenarios and tools that we like about CashCalc. So just to explain CashCalc, ClearChoice took on CashCalc last year and brought it to the Irish market. CashCalc is a UK-based cash flow modelling software, and it was built 5 years ago by a UK IFA called Niche IFA. It was really born out of an issue they had with other cash flow modelling tools in the UK market, and they wanted a more simplified version for their clients. And cash flow modelling, as some of you may know, is a glitch in the UK due to pension freedom. So obviously DBDC, there were a number of scandals across the way with British Steel and Carillion. So cash flow modelling shouldn't be obligatory because it should be best practice in our view. So we really like cash flow modelling for every aspect of the business. It's been a bit of a game changer for people we've seen using it, as well as ourselves. And really what it's designed to do is actually cut down from the number of meetings you need to have with a client by engaging with the online fact find, and then giving a simplified version of a cash flow modelling tool. So cash flow modelling, we think, should be the way of the future. I estimate there's maybe 400 to 450 brokers in the market using cash flow modelling tool. We'd like to see that upgraded across the marketplace, regardless of what it is, and we think everyone fits certain spots. So what Lee is going to do first of all, and before I even get into that, I won't leave that to the end. The cost of CashCalc for anybody who does want to take it is €41 plus VAT a month, so it works out at €50 on the nose, which we hope is reasonable. Everything's white labeled, so your logo is on it. So when you see ClearChoice won't be here. There'll be your own logo, and I'll pass you on to Lee there, and I might just interject as Lee goes with a few comments as he builds certain scenarios out. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul. Right, everyone, the first thing we want to do is we're going to kick off by going through the client onboarding process. So when it comes to cash flow modeling, your forecasts are typically only as good as the data that you're given. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you see on the screen up towards the top, I'm going to click add a client. So the first thing we need to add in is the client's name. At this early stage, if you have the client's date of birth, you can add it in. If not, you can just leave it as the default there. You see we've got a button here if we want to include the client's partner or spouse. So we can do that if we want. For now, we'll just leave it as an individual. Then if we scroll down and click more options, you'll see down here, we're going to select the client's gender. Then we're going to pop in the client's email address. And then their mobile number as well if we have it. Once we click add client, we're going to be brought into the client's dashboard. So at this stage, you'll see a number of different icons. The one we're going to focus on at the minute is the yellow one up towards the top of the screen, which is onboarding. Once we click this, we're going to select data capture. And then once we're in this screen here, any data capture forms that the client's completed already and returned, you'll find down here at the bottom. Obviously, we haven't sent one out yet, so we're going to do that up here at the top with the yellow, or with the pink button, sorry. When we click that, we've got a number of different types of forms you can send out. We typically use the full fact find, but you can select any of these others if you want. Once we click next page, you'll see you were given a link here, at which stage we can either print the paper copy, but the best thing to do at this point is to click email the link to the client. So now you'll see we've got a default email template now, which we can edit as much as we want, or if you want, you can just leave it as this default. And it will pre-populate the client's email address up here at the top. Your email address will be notified then once the client clicks the button and completes the form and sent back. I'm just going to copy this link here and open it in a different browser to give you a bit of an idea of what the client's going to see in a second. So once we go on to the next page, the client's going to need a PIN number to access the form. So typically we send it to their phone by text message. So I click this here. And I'll just take a second to send both of these. So now I'm just going to pop onto our other screen here, and I'm going to pop in the PIN, and the client's going to click a consent box here and click verify PIN.
And what I like about this part of this is, I suppose, if you average out the number of client meetings an advisor would have, it tends to be 2 to 3 and maybe even more. But I suppose the most inefficient meeting of any gathering is the fact find process. And generally, it's quite a pressurized meeting in someone's home on a lunch break, in a hotel, where they're getting questions. They're not going to know what they're going to be asked. They're nervous. You don't understand everything, and you don't exactly know what they have either, plus their income and expenditure. So what we're trying to do with CashCalc and encourage, and I know there's been a few shapes thrown at this before in the industry, is initially the online fact find was something we were a bit cynical about, and we went over to the UK and saw people using it and thought, well, Irish people won't actually complete this level of information. And then initially when we started piloting it last year, we said, actually, you know what, we'll send it to people under 40. We'll send the people who are good at IT, that we think can be good at this. And to be honest, the minute you start putting up those barriers, you're going to trip yourself up. So fact finding isn't what you're paid to do, and generally it's not a very efficient use of your time. So if you can have your first meeting to be an advice and knowledge meeting rather than actually gathering basic information, I think you'll have a more efficient use of your time. And if someone comes back to you and you see that they don't have any capital or income to actually spend on financial products, which is what you're trying to do in some ways, then you'll know that it's actually not worth meeting them. You can actually say, do you know what, you need to come back to me in a year's time when you pulled up your bootstraps and tidied up your finances. And at least then you'll know exactly what they are as a prospect. And that's what we like about CashCalc. The first advice meeting you're going to have is an actual advice meeting, not a basic data gathering meeting.
Great. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of what it looks like for the client once they're working their way through the tabs on the left-hand side and filling out the info. As I said, once they complete that and return it to you, let me pop into a different client here just to give you a bit of an idea of what it will look like on your end. So you're going to open up the email to let you know you're going to log into the system. Back here again to where we sent the data capture previously, we're going to move into onboarding. And down here on the bottom, you're going to see two different tabs visible to you. We've got financial details and also personal details. So the financial details are obviously quite self-explanatory. We've got all of the client's income figures, their expenses, any pensions they might have, savings plans, different assets, and the mortgage down here at the bottom. And then inside personal details, the usual name, address, date of birth, and then any protection policies down here at the bottom that the client might have. So at this point, what you can do is you can click the print PDF button, and it will allow you to save this to your own client file in your file management system internally. And also what you could do is, if you've got this back and maybe you're not happy with the level of information that's completed, you're able to print this off, maybe bring it to the meeting, add your few notes yourself, and before you go back to the office and do a bit of work on the file. So typically, in terms of cash flow modeling, what we do at this stage when the client has returned all of this information is we're going to go over to the right-hand side here. We're going to click the pink button to update the client profile. And it's going to transfer all of this information over to our client profile, which is a separate section here, which I'll show you now. So we're going to click Confirm Updates. And then we'll go back to the client profile. It's basically going to give us all of the same data that they've sent back, just in a different kind of format here. And at which stage we're going to click this green button here to update the calculator. It's going to select all of these different items down here, including the client's incomes and expenses that they've completed. And we're going to put in the scenario name. So at this stage, when we're transferring all of the information that the client has told us, we're always going to name it the current situation, because it's basically a snapshot of where the client stands today.
And why this is going to be important into the future is obviously there's a lot of pressure in our industry in terms of justifying how you receive ongoing remuneration and pension investment planning business. So this is a very quick and accurate way of actually seeing what a client has on a year-on-year basis, and all you're doing is editing a forecast by saying, well, current situation, Paul Kelly 2021, John Kelly 2022, and building on what they have and saying, actually, no, they're on a salary of 50 grand more a year and they're throwing 200 quid more into a pension, and here's a change in complexion of their financial cash flow.
Cool, great. So now that we've exported the information from the client profile, we're now within the cash flow modeler. You'll see up here in the top left-hand corner, cash flow modeler, and we're in client John Kelly. So similar to the data capture that the client fills out himself, we're going to work our way down these different tabs on the left-hand side. First one being assumptions. So the system's going to take an inflation rate, and the reason for that is that all of the outputs and figures that we're going to look at, they're all in real terms. And the importance of this is that for different clients, we're going to be forecasting several decades over time, 20, 30, 40 years. So over these long time periods, inflation is going to have a massive impact on the client's money. So for us, it's important to take that into consideration so that we're not looking at figures that will not retain the same buying power in the future. And for us, we like to just leave inflation at 2%. It's in and around that when we average it out over a long period of time. Obviously, we're going to have ups and downs. The second assumption we're going to take here is forecast end age. This is basically when you want to end the forecast, when we're basically going to say that the client's going to die. 100 again is a rough rule of thumb, between 90 and 100 for us. Most clients might not live until age 100, but we think it's better to forecast too far out than to have it too soon. And then the last assumption down here at the bottom you'll see is retirement age. So we don't actually select this ourselves, it's done by the client in the data capture form and fed in from when we've transferred the information from the client profile. But if you want that at any stage, you're able to edit this. You'll also notice there's a few different events that you can add in, like an inheritance, a birth, a wedding. You'll be using these a bit more when you get to a complex stage in these. So for now, we'll just leave it as is. We're going to jump on to the next tab, which is savings pots. Again, it's important to remember that all of this information that we're looking at hasn't been added in manually by us. It's all fed in automatically from when the client completes the data capture. So you'll see that we have the credit union account that they've told us about. We've got a growth rate of 0% on this. And we've also got a personal pension plan that they told us about. But this time we're going to grow this at 5% growth. So if I click edit here, you'll see that we can change the name of the pension pot, we can change the starting value, and when it comes to growth, we've got two different options. So the first one is linear growth, meaning if we want to grow the pension pot at a set rate every year. So at this stage, we're growing at a 5% every year. Important to take note that it also takes inflation into account in this growth rate. So with our assumed inflation of 2%, that's going to be a real return of 3% for the client. You can also select a variable growth if you want. So by default, the system has 3 benchmark portfolios that you can use to work off. And you can also add in your own custom portfolios if you want. So you can see we've added in the Zurich balance fund here. If we click view, you get the different growth rates over time. So it's going to have up years, it's going to have minus years. And the purpose of this is maybe to show some equity invested clients a bit more of a realistic view on what their fund is going to look like as it goes up and down over time. And for now, just to keep things simple, we'll use a 5% linear growth. So now, once we're happy with our savings pots, we're going to jump onto income and expenses. And the first thing you'll notice with these is each of them have a start age and an end age. So both of these income sources, John's net salary and also his child benefit, are starting at age 40, which is today. His monthly net salary is going to end at retirement, and his child benefit is going to end in 8 years.
Obviously, people, if they're completing this at their kitchen table or on a Tuesday evening, they may put a 0 in the wrong place. So it's very easy to edit all their income expenses on the right-hand side just to make sure it's all making sense as well. So just to see that there.
So you'll see the state pension as well here. If you're ever missing the state pension, you can click this blue button up here, quick add, select the state pension, and based on the client's date of birth, it will work out when they're entitled to it. And similar to all the others, you can edit the amount over here on the right-hand side. Down here to expenses, you'll see we have 2 separate different categories. We've got pre-retirement expenses that the client filled out, and a bit further down, we've got post-retirement. You'll also notice here in the middle that we've got the mortgage, which isn't ending at retirement, it's ending separately, which is in 17 years at age 57. But it's easy to just jump into edit here on the right-hand side, change 57 to whatever age you want to, update monthly expense, and that's it. So once we're happy with all these, again, we're going to jump down to contributions and withdrawals, which at this stage is blank. The client's told us he's not paying into any pensions, he's not drawing down from anything. Charges and fees is also blank. The reason for this is that you can add in a nominal fee or a percentage charge on a certain savings pot if you want. But for us, we find it easier to just take this into account on the growth rate when you're adding it here as an assumption. So once we jump past charges and fees, we're now onto the fancy outputs of the graph essentially. So we've got 2 different tabs, savings over time and money in versus money out. If I scroll down here to the bottom, you'll see the client's age over time as he goes from age 40 up until age 100 at the end of the forecast. You'll see these different colors are representing different savings pots that the client has. So you see the credit union from age 40, it's decreasing in value. The reason being is the impact that inflation is having when we're growing it at 0%. And then reversely, we've got the pension pot, which is grown based on 5% growth rate over a year, all the way up until the client gets to retirement age. So once we jump up here to money in versus money out, bit of a separate graph here now. Looking down the bottom again, similar axis, but now that each bar represents a different income source. So we've got John's monthly income. Up here at the top, we've got John's child benefit, which, as we showed earlier, is ending in 8 years. And then as we go further along the forecast, we'll see his state pension.
You'll see with the black line in our experience as well on this black line, obviously this John Kelly's a very well behaved client because the black line of expenditure tends to be much closer to the blue line. So again, just to allow for that. So this guy has good capacity for financial planning, but often people will be a bit closer to the bone at the top there. So just to explain that as well.
So with this black line representing the client's expenses, what that basically means is everything we see above this black line on these bars is what we call surplus income. So by default, what the system is going to do is it's going to save all of the money above this black line and put it into the client's current account. We don't necessarily think this is in reality what happens with clients, because we've heard advisors sitting down with clients and then telling them that they've got 20,000 surplus income every year, but the client's telling the advisor that they're looking in their purse and they're struggling to find money at the end of every month. So typically what happens with this surplus income is the client finds somewhere to spend it. So if we go up into the top right hand corner here to options and then advanced options, you'll see we've got a setting here which is surplus income to save, which we typically bring down to 0%. If you want, you can put it at a higher amount, but we typically advise not to use 100% as it kind of skews the graph unrealistically. So now that we've run through all of the outputs of the system, what we typically do at this stage, once the current situation is refined, is we basically look at cloning different forecasts and looking at different what-if scenarios. So if you see up here, this tab that we're in presently is the current situation. If we click this little plus, it will allow us to create a new forecast. I'm going to call this forecast with pension contribution. It's going to ask a starting age, which we're going to set at age 40, which is the client's current age. And then we're going to clone it from the client's current situation. So what this basically means is we're going to create an exact copy of where the client stands today. So it's going to carry over all of that information. So the first thing you'll notice is as we're looking at a copy of the current situation, the first thing we'll notice is that this light green here, which is the client drawn now from his pension to cover a gap, it runs out after 3 years. So if we go back to savings over time, you'll see the reason for that is that the pension only grows to 35,000, so it's not going to cover that shortfall for very long. Basically, this white space under the black line is a shortfall that we need to address with the client. So now that we've basically identified the issue, we're going to look at solving that by adding in a pension contribution inside this forecast. So if I jump into the contributions tab here, click the pink button to add a contribution. Let's call this personal pension. And we're going to add in every month. If it's coming from an employer, we can tick this button here. But for now, we're just going to say that the client's going to fund it themselves. Let's say €250 per month, starting today, and then it's going to end when the client is retiring. It's going to ask what savings pot you want to add this into. So we're going to select personal pension, and then we're going to index it with inflation at 2% every year. So once we click add monthly, we're going to jump back to the graph now. The first thing you'll notice is the gray line which appears. Basically, that's showing the client's capacity to afford it. So it's the client's expenses plus the contributions that we're adding in. You can see the client's still got plenty of surplus income up here, so it's not going to have a major impact on him. You'll also notice here now that the gap in retirement is funded all the way up until age 84. And then if we jump into savings over time again, we'll see that the value of the savings pot's rising much higher now to just under 200,000. So at this stage, we can click compare forecasts up here in the top right hand corner, and it's going to show us the difference between with a pension contribution and the current situation without one. You see here we can hover over any particular year, that'll give us a breakdown, and then we can click finish and close. If you want to add in a higher contribution, we can do so by just jumping back to this contributions tab, clicking edit on the right hand side, and maybe up in that 250 to 350 a month. Going back here, and you'll see now that the client isn't running out of funds until age 92. So that's basically addressing the pension shortfall that we've identified. There's a note numerous amount of things that you can look at. We might look at now a protection scenario here. So if we clone this forecast.
Yeah, I suppose just on this, obviously protection's a cornerstone of everything we've ever done in Clear Choice, but it's no great secret in our industry that one area where we're not particularly adept at providing advice and actually getting people on coverage is income protection. So a cash flow modelling tool, I know cash flow modelling has traditionally been towards wealth management and financial planning, retirement planning, but income protection is one of the things I've seen fall out of CashCalc, which has been great to see because the industry's at a massive deficit of selling income protection. If we can find an easier way to sell it that's illustrative, we think cash flow modeling is the easier way to do it here. So what Lee's going to show you is a loss of income scenario, an income protection solution, perhaps a debt scenario, and then a pension drawdown scenario after that.
Great. So if we're going to focus on income protection first, similar to the way that we identified the pension shortfall, I suppose first step for us to do now is to kind of identify the gap and to look at maybe the problems that might arise for the client first before we start plugging that hole with a solution. So the first forecast I'm going to name here for the income protection is going to say loss of income. Again, I'm going to clone this from the current situation so that I'm going to carry over all this information. So now that we've got loss of income, the only change I'm going to make is I'm going to go into the income and expenses tab. I'm going to go over to monthly net salary and delete the client's salary. Obviously, depending on a case-by-case basis, your client might be entitled to a state illness benefit, but let's just say for illustration purposes that this client is self-employed and he doesn't have any entitlement. So if we jump straight back to the graph here and look at money in versus money out now, you see a massive gap here that's arisen under the black line. So you see this little light green bar is the client drawn now from all of his credit union savings straight away to try and fund the shortfall, which isn't getting them too far. The child benefits barely getting them anywhere, and then we've got a massive gap here up until age 60.
And why this is really important is someone's either going to be self-employed or they're going to be PAYE worker. If John was self-employed, obviously you're not going to see the state welfare benefit there. There's a provision brought in a year and a half ago that self-employed people can get the social welfare benefit of a couple of £100 a week, but generally speaking, they have to be out of work for a year and prove they're out of work on an ongoing basis. So if you're talking to anybody self-employed in cash flow modelling and income protection, that gap stays the same. Now, what you can do very quickly is you can add in an income here for the social welfare benefit, which will close that white gap slightly, but still not be great.
So if we say that this client's going to have a state illness benefit every week of €208 from now up until retirement, and then we can go back and look at the impact that has on the outputs. Again, it's a tiny amount in the grand scheme of things. It's only 10,000 a year, but with the client's expenses being up towards 40,000, it's not doing any good for them.
And that state welfare benefit, obviously, in the debt scenario, which Lee will show, obviously there's a difference between married couples and cohabiting couples. So obviously, if someone's married, they'll have to stay with the widow's pension. But if they're cohabiting, which a lot more people are doing now, they'll have that actually parallel situation where they won't have any state income.
So now that we've identified the issue with the client's situation at the minute, we're going to look at the solution, I suppose. So if we're going to create a new forecast again, but this time we'll name it with income protection to demonstrate to the client how the forecast would look different if you were to have income protection in place. So we're going to clone loss of income this time. And the only change we'll make here is we're going to go into income again, add a new income source, and this time we'll call it income protection benefit. Every month, I'm going to say that this client's entitled to $3,000 per month from now, and let's say he takes it out until age 68. So now going back to the forecast that we were looking at previously, you'll see the big difference now is that this purple income source is pushing the client's income above that black line, meaning that he has sufficient funds to maintain the lifestyle that he's told us about with this black line here. So similar to what we know with the pension scenario, if we click compare forecasts and we select with income protection versus loss of income and select up here in the top right the money in versus money out graph, you'll see now the big difference between the two. So it's not going to reinvent the wheel or change the way you're going to give your advice. It's more to visualize different aspects on what you would typically tell the client rather than just telling them you need to ensure your income in case this happens. It's giving them a bit more of a simplistic visual view on what it would look like for them should they be out of work. So now that we've looked at income protection, as Paul was saying, we might look at a income or a life insurance angle here now. So sticking to the concept of creating a problem and then solving it with a solution, we're going to create the problem, which is going to be debt in this case, cloned from the current situation. So debt is a bit more complex than income protection scenarios because we only had to make one or two changes previously. This time we're going to go into savings pots and we're going to edit the pension pot and we're going to untick this box which says this is a pension. And now the reason for this is twofold. Is the first reason is that the client, in this case, his spouse, is going to receive all of the benefit tax-free, whereas when this is ticked, it's going to tax it at a certain rate. So by unticking this box, it's going to allow the spouse to retain the benefit tax-free. And the second thing it's going to do is it's not going to restrict the client's access to a certain age like we've seen before. Whereas when he was out of work before, he had to wait until age 60 to access the pension. Whereas by unticking this, it's going to treat this like a normal savings pot and allow her to draw down as she needs. Now, going into income, we're going to delete the client's monthly net salary, which he won't get anymore. The child benefit will still be coming into the household. We're also going to delete the client's state pension benefit. And then the only other change we're going to make is we'll scroll down here to the mortgage repayment of $1,200 a month. And we're going to delete that also because we're going to assume that the mortgage will be paid off by a mortgage protection policy.
It also allows you to be a bit more surgical in your recommendation because you might say, okay, well, if a person was alive, there may be a cost to them actually on a monthly basis of say 500 or €1,000 a month. So adding back in a widow's pension plus the cost of that person being there allows you to be more prescriptive. And we've actually seen a bit of an uptick in people looking at products like say the monthly income and debt products, which are traditionally a bit harder to sell as a concept as well.
So now if we look at the outputs here, you'll see it's kind of a bleak scenario for the client and their spouse. As Paul was saying, you run into a lot of new couples these days who weren't married, meaning there'll be no widow's pension entitlement. So this is basically showing us that the client spouse has drawn down on all the available funds and it's only basically covering that deficit for a bit over a year. So if we jump quickly back into income tab on the left-hand side, and let's say we're going to add in a new income source, assuming that this client spouse will now get the widow's pension. Let's say they'll get every week, again, €208. Could be higher if they have kids, but let's just keep it simple for this scenario. Starting today, and let's say we'll end this at the end of the forecast at age 100. Add this in, and you'll see if we jump back now to the outputs of the graph, it will get the client maybe about halfway there. Just remember as well that the expenses are reduced now that the mortgage repayment is gone. It's still not sufficient to get them up to this black line to maintain that lifestyle. So now the funds that they have access to, looking at savings over time, the two small funds of the credit union and the personal pension, they're getting slightly further, but again, it's not really solving the problem. It's only covering the gap for another 2 years. So looking at this problem and then thinking about how we would solve this in a new forecast, we'll create a new forecast and name this one with 250,000 life cover. This time we'll be cloning the debt scenario to carry over all of those details. And then the only change we'll have to make here is we'll go into savings pots. I'm going to add a new savings pot and call this life cover payout. And let's say 250,000. And let's give the client a 3% growth rate and say they've invested the funds. So once we've added this savings pot here, going back to the outputs, you'll see now this gap is bridged up until age 61. And looking at savings over time, you'll see the value of the life cover payout as it's drawn down on. So for this client, 250,000 doesn't seem like sufficient funds. You see a big deficit growing here over time up until age 100. So if I clone this forecast again, and this time let's call this with 600,000 life cover, and we'll clone the forecast we're just working on now. And now the only change we'll have to make is go into savings pots and edit the value of the life cover payout from 250 up until 600,000. Going back here now, you see this save pot is lasting all the way up until age 97 now, until they bomb out. So looking at the compare forecast tab once more, we'll compare this one against that. You see it's a very different situation here. Money in versus money out. You see this gap that we talked about previously versus the gap now being filled. So that's basically the life cover angle covered off. The final scenario I think we'll look at is maybe looking at pension drawdowns in a bit more detail. So once we click create new forecast, let's call this new one pension drawdown. And for this demonstration, let's look at the pension contribution forecast. So essentially what happens here by default, if we go into money in versus money out, is when the client reaches retirement age, it's going to draw down enough income for the client to sustain the lifestyle up to this black line. In reality, it's going to be slightly different. So to dig down in a bit more detail, what we'll do is go into contributions and withdrawals here on the left-hand side. We're going to add a new withdrawal, and we'll call this one tax-free lump sum. Format will be percentage. The frequency will be once off. It's going to be 25% once the client reaches retirement age, and we're going to draw it down from the personal pension. So you'll also get a tax rate here. By default, it's going to draw it at 20%. So we're going to select custom tax rate now and draw it. So once we've added this in here now, if we just quickly flick back to the forecast, you'll see a spike here now at retirement age. It's essentially going to take the client's value of his pension pot at retirement and take 25% tax free. So the only other withdrawals now we have to take are the ARF. So if I add withdrawal, call this ARF at 4%. Percentage, this time it's going to be every year, 4% from the client's retirement age up until age 71. And in savings pot, it's going to be 6 before personal pension, and we'll tax it at 20%. We're going to add in one more withdrawal now. This time it's going to be ARF 5%. Same again, percentage every year, 5%. This time from age 71 up until the end of the forecast, and then from the personal pension. So now if we go back here to cash flow model, you see a bit more of a detailed breakdown of what it will look like for the client up until when they get up until retirement age. You see the tax-free lump sum of 63,000 coming in here, the first 4% DARF drawdown, and then here as it bombs out over time. You see this 5% DARF is not getting them up to the black line that they need to, so it's going to draw down additional funds to get them there. So I think that's all the scenarios we really wanted to cover today.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of nuances to all the scenarios, and we don't go into them in too much detail, but you're probably 80 to 90% of the way there on CashCalc, having looked at those things. Now, there's a few peripheral tools that we'll just show you very quickly on CashCalc. I don't think you'd buy CashCalc for them alone, but they're good complementary tools. And what you've got is Monte Carlo scenarios, a children's educator scenario, a mortgage switcher tool as well, and a few other little bits that we can show you quickly.
Yeah, so as Paul was saying there, the bulk of your time in the system will be spent within the cash flow modeler. That's really the heart of the system. These kind of outside calculators here, the first one we'll go through is the Monte Carlo simulator here. So basically the way this drawdown works is we're going to select a current pot size for the client's pension pot. We're going to select the threshold that we don't want this pot to fall below. What we're going to do then is we're going to select the client risk profile between 1 and 10. This is basically going to work off the assumptions that the growth is going to take. So the higher the risk, the higher the variance you're going to see funding up, funding down, that sort of thing. And down here, we're going to see an annual advisor fee. So if we select 2% at the minute, and we're going to end this simulation at age 99. And then finally, the system takes two more assumptions over here on the right-hand side. The first one is a desired withdrawal amount at retirement. So you can see in this example here, this client wants to draw down 4,000 each month when they get to retirement age. And from age 34 up until 67, they want to contribute €250 a month. So what this is basically going to do is it's going to use historic fund data over time to model this client's pension pot and the contributions going into it to basically say how it's going to perform if it had been in certain funds. So you'll see all these different scatter plots at the back, but the main thing to focus on are the whole lines here. So this kind of red line here, which bombs out here at age 87, is going to be if the fund were to perform pessimistically based on the market average in that risk category. The one above it here, this blue line is getting up to 97. That's going to be if it were to perform on average. And the line above it here, the green one, is going to be if it were to perform optimistically and beat the market returns in that risk category. So what we typically use this tool for is to demonstrate the impact that fees and charges can have on a pension. So you'll see that before we selected 2%, we bring that 2% down to 1% and run the simulation again. You see now that these scenarios are getting the client much further than before. Even if the fund were to perform pessimistically, it's still getting client up till age 99, and with the other two, it's getting them way further beyond. So that's basically the main purpose of this tool for us. If we jump back to client dashboard briefly here, if we now look at the school fees calculator over here in the bottom left, click in here. You're going to create a different forecast for each child. So we're going to add in the child's name and click add new forecast. Now, what this tool is going to do is it's going to take a current savings amount. So if a client has built up a savings pot for the children's education, you'll put in the value there if you want. Let's just say 2,000 for now. It's going to take an assumed savings growth rate, which let's just say 5% for the time being, and an assumed inflation rate, which let's say 2%. So now it's going to take the child's current age, let's say the child's 5 now, age when the child starts school, let's say we're going to go for university, so they're going to start at age 18 and it's going to end at age 21. So now if we're going to select education type, university, save and calculate, we've got 3 different options here on the right hand side. First option is going to be if the client has a specific amount that they wish to save every month of surplus income. A common one we find is that the client wants to save the child benefit and see how far we'll get them. So if we put in 140 a month, it's going to show us that by the time the child is going to college, they'll have 26,000 in the pot built up, which also means 8,000 a year for the 3 years that the child's going to be in college. Second option here in the middle is if the client has a specific fund pot size that they want to reach. So let's say they want 40,000 for when the kids go to college. It's going to tell the client what they'll need to save each month to reach that fund size. And the final one here is if they want a specific annual amount each year. Let's keep it small and say 3,000 a year. It's going to tell them again how much they'll have to save from now up until when the child is going to university. Now if we jump back to the client dashboard, the final one we look at here in Core Tools is the mortgage calculator. So over here on the left-hand side, it's going to ask you for a start date. It's going to ask for an amount borrowed, let's say 300,000 at a, let's say 3.5% interest rate over a term of 35 years. If we click Save and Calculate, the system's going to work out the monthly repayments required for this loan. It's also going to work out the total interest charged over the term of the loan, which you see here is 220,000. As Paul mentioned previously, this tool is really good for prompting clients to switch their mortgage. If we show them the savings that could be made, the first way we could do that is if we lower the interest rate from 3.5 to maybe 2.3%. Click Save and Calculate, and you'll see now that the total interest charge is down to 137 each, or over the term of the mortgage, I should say. Another way we could demonstrate this to the client is if we reduce the term of the mortgage from, say, 35 years to 25, the total interest charge is going to drop again. Obviously, the monthly repayments are going to increase slightly. So similar to all of the cash flow models, school fee calculators, Monte Carlo, you can create a report for all of the outputs on the system that you've got. And it will give you the option to either open it as a Word document or a PDF report. Similar to the data capture sent to the client and the system here that we're looking at, all of the reports are white labeled with your company logo.
That's really it, folks. I hope you got a good feel for how it works. For those of you who use ClearChoice already, obviously give myself or Lee a shout on anything. For those of you who want to take it up and have a look at it, we'll give everyone who attended the webinar a month's free trial. We'll send around as a link and details on how to get started and everything like that. And any questions in the meantime, let us know. Thanks for your time. We're just 40 minutes on the nose there. Thanks, everyone.